please. I see what you did there. That was fun. I'm going to go back to that song. No, I'm going to go ahead and invite you to open up your Bibles this morning pretty early. If you want to open up your Bibles or turn on your Bibles to John chapter 4, because that's where we're going to be this morning. We're going to spend time encountering Jesus with this Samaritan woman beside Jacob's well. But before we launch into there, while you're still turning the pages, I want to go ahead and ask you to think on a couple of questions and answer them truthfully, at least in your own heart, and at least to yourself. Because being truthful about these, well, ironically enough, it has an awful lot to do with what you're doing here. Being honest with yourself and what it is that you brought through those doors when you came to be in the presence of the Lord. Being honest with the Lord about who you are and where you are so deeply affects what happens when you come here. So I want to begin by asking you the question, how are you broken? How are you broken? In Christian circles, we have a good meaning to that word. You know, we'll even sing about it, break my heart. I want my heart broken open so that God can come in. But that's not how I'm using the term right here. How are you broken? What's wrong? I don't think I've ever met a person. Well, actually, I take it back. I've met one person that couldn't answer that question. I was on an airplane flying from America to Europe, and I sat next to a guy, and he found out I was on my way to a Christian mission, and he was asking me, he was like, why do you Christians all feel so guilty? I don't have anything wrong with me. And then he talked for the rest of the flight, and I thought, dude, you want a list? You know, but most people that you encounter, we are aware that there's something wrong, aren't we? And maybe a cognate question that uses the exact same words. How broken are you? You know, as you look at your life, are you holding it together? Barely? You know, or you got the brokenness pretty well hidden? You got it patched up? You know, and as long as you don't put water in it, everything will hold together? Or are there fractures all over the place that everybody can see? Wherever you are with your brokenness, be honest about it, because this morning we are coming to find that worshipness and being honest about our brokenness are linked realities. And we'll see that as we stand together with this woman beside a well in dusty Palestine. I want to begin this exploration of brokenness by talking about something that we don't know anything about. At least most of us don't. And that is this daily, grueling human task. Most people in the world today, and when you speak in sheer numbers, most people today will get up with this concern. I have to get today's water. And many will walk for miles to get water that you would not drink. In fact, the crisis of the need for water is a big one right now. But I don't want to get into that big political crisis. I just want you to think with me about this reality. Every day, human beings get up and go get what you just turn on a little knob to get. And they will carry it often on their heads for miles. The stuff weighs 8 pounds a gallon, and this is a daily, grueling activity. I've been in Africa where they actually have, this is not a picture of me in Africa. I don't think I'm in that. No, that's all women. So, no, I'm not in that. But I've been in Africa where there is a village well. It was really cool. The well had this wall around it, I suspect to keep people like me from falling into it. The well was about 9 feet across and about 7 miles deep, or at least that's my estimate. I suspect it wasn't quite, but it was really deep. Worn into the side of the wall in the well were these deep grooves Because that well had been there for, decades and decades, and the ropes had burned through the rocks and made these deep grooves. That was a gathering place. People come there all the time. Every day. They gather together. And by the way, this is women's work. No offense to our modern ears, but in Africa still to this day, it's the women that carry the water. The men have to build the house, and then they don't do much else. And the women have got like this list of daily tasks that they have to do that is ridiculously long. I guess the guys have to kill a lion if it shows up. But most of the time they're all right, But the women have to carry this stuff, so they gather there every day, right at the beginning of the day, or right at the end of the day. And it's a gathering place to gather and chat and talk and discuss. It's a place to catch up on the gossip. Think of it kind of like a barber shop in the 60s, where the guys would get together and they get their hair cut, but that's not why they're there. They're there to hang out with their buddies, right? You have to go get the water. But the gathering place is the place to get together and spend time chewing on the juiciest morsel. When you don't go? Noon? Now, why don't you go at noon? Yeah, it's really hot. And as I previously mentioned, each gallon of this stuff weighs 8 pounds, and you're going to need a lot more than a gallon, right? So this is hard, grueling work. The reason you gather there and sit forever is because you don't want to carry that back to your house. So you got to spend some time resting and relaxing before you have to pick it up and lug it away. But why would anybody go by themselves at noon? Maybe because you're what they're talking about. When they gather together to chew on the latest bit of gossip, it's you again this week. This week in John chapter 4, we look at this woman who meets Jesus beside the well. It's interesting, we never get her name. I suspect that's on purpose, so that we can more easily step into her shoes with our own brokenness. This woman comes to the well at the wrong time of day so that she can do her business by herself, because she just doesn't want to hear it. She doesn't want the criticism. She doesn't want the laughter. She doesn't want the people making fun of her, because everybody knows her business. And let's face it, if everyone knew the answer to those first two questions, wouldn't you want to run and hide too? And everyone knows everything about her. She has been handed around in her village. She is the tramp. She is broken, and everyone knows it. And weary and tired of having to face her own brokenness, she retreats from her community, and she comes in the middle of the day. Don't you know her heart sank when she saw someone sitting there? And not just anybody, but a guy. Men haven't been real good to her in her life. And not just any guy. Great. He's Jewish. It is a critical guy. A guy who hates my people. A guy with decades of hatred boiling inside of me. A racist who wants to look at me through the prism of my people rather than as an individual. Great. This is what I have to deal with. Maybe it would have been better to be thirsty today. Except it turns out that this guy is thirsty. And don't you know she's shocked when he says this. That Gentiles have touched. And Samaritans are worse than Gentiles because they're halfway there. At least in their culture. They're almost Jews, and an almost Jew is more blasphemous than not a Jew at all. And yet this man jumps right across the barriers and is willing to treat her like a person despite her unacceptability. She's shocked by it. How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of water of me, a Samaritan woman? There's like 3 reasons why you don't do that. Men don't talk to women. And she's the wrong race. And maybe he knows something about what kind of woman she is. There's just, you shouldn't even be talking to me. But see, that's what God does, isn't it? God tears down barriers. He breaks through all of them. God loves each of us. This water right here in this well, they're going to get thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give will never thirst again. It will become a spring of water gushing up within them to eternal life. Jesus isn't talking about water, is he? He's talking about what Isaiah said when he said, "Everyone who's thirsty, come." doesn't ignore her. Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come back." And boom, brokenness lands right on her, doesn't it? I mean, it is right there. Jesus puts his finger right where it hurts. And I'm telling you, if you encounter Jesus, he will not ignore your sin. The thing that you will want to pretend is not there when you go to him in prayer, the thing that you're wanting to cover up, the thing that you hope nobody finds out about, he already knows. And he intends to come to you at just that point. He will welcome you at pleasant places as well. He'll spend time with you all day long, helping. Why she threw this at him. I have no husband. Let's not go there, okay? Because men have been bad to me all my life long. They have used me again and again and again, and I don't want this. This is why I'm here at noon. Man, we were having such a good conversation. It was a little funny and weird, but at least it wasn't this stuff again. And he leads her into the reality of what she has just said and the great power of telling the truth in the presence of God. He says, "You're right in saying you have no husband, for you've had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you've just said is true." Now that is going to become very important when we hear Jesus talk again in just a minute. Because he's going to talk about truth and how it ties up with worship. But what he does here is he says, you're telling the truth. And it's a scary truth, so you've only come part way. Let me help you out. Let me get you the rest of the way here. Let's deal with the real problem. Because the real problem is you are broken in the way you approach your relationships. And you are drawn to people who are also broken in the way they use their relationships. And because of that, you've never had fidelity. You never had security. You've never had the safety of a committed relationship. And right now, you're being handed around, aren't you? And that's why you're here at noon. Oh. God will tell you the truth about yourself, and it will hurt. But again, he doesn't hurt to hurt. He hurts to heal. And he's going to take what's broken, he's going to make it right. Which is where she moves then, well, okay, maybe I need to move toward God here. This guy started out talking about God, but that was a pretty impressive sign you just did. So, okay, maybe this is someone who can help me find God. She says, "Sir, I perceive you're a prophet. Our ancestors worship on this mountain, but you say the place where people have to worship is in Jerusalem." Do you know what she's doing? Because maybe if I give God the broken pieces of my life, maybe he'll pick them back up and put them back together. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever looked at your woundedness and your brokenness and thought, how can anybody love me, but maybe God would? I just want to find God. Lady, you've come to the right person. When you're there, When you're at the place where you're wondering, well, will anyone accept me? Will God accept me? The person you move to is Jesus, because He will lead you right to Him, which is what He does. Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will worship the Father neither here on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. That stuff's all tied up to a temple argument that goes all the way back to the divided kingdom. And that's all real interesting. But what real worship is, that stuff was training wheels for true worship. And what He's saying is, you worship what you don't know. You're looking for Him. I understand that. We know what we worship because salvation is coming from the Jews. God has been working with us. But get this. The hour is coming and now is here when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeks such as these to worship Him. God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. Now, we've honestly, I think, kind of freaked out a little bit about those verses because we're so afraid of being Pentecostal that we don't want to worship Him in spirit at all. And we make truth woundedness, all of you, the strength and glory that Christ is making into you, and all of the sin and brokenness that is in you. You bring what you are to Him because it is the only sacrifice you truly have to offer. The only thing that is really yours is what God has made of you. And of course, He holds the deed on even that. But you bring it to Him and you offer it to Him. And you say, this is who I am. Am I welcome here? And the Spirit... The one you're talking to right now. You've come to the right person. I can heal what's broken in you. And I believe that the moment He said those words, everything in their conversation rippled backwards, and this woman's life began a change that would last for the rest of her life. And why do I say that? Look at what John says she does next. She leaves the water jar. The whole reason she came there was to get her water for the day. She leaves it behind, and where does she go? She goes to the place she was avoiding. Brokenness will make you hide if it's all you believe in. If all you with all your fear and all your concern that you'll be rejected and all of your shame, bring it really here. But in another sense, those questions don't matter at all. Because you are the beloved of God. He loves you so much, He gave His Son to rescue you from your brokenness. And God does not reject broken people for being broken. God is seeking people who will tell the truth about themselves when they come to this place and be open with it and let the Spirit change the story they've got to tell. So where are you with this? Are you broken? Come and behold. The Lord God can raise the dead. He can raise you. And no matter how broken you are, He loves you. He will not reject or despise you. He welcomes you into His life so that you might live it. Where are you? If you haven't received Christ in baptism, the water's right there. And it's all about being made whole. And if you haven't been immersed with Jesus into His blood and been raised into new life, today would be a really good day. This would be a great day to do that. And if you know you've been walking with the Lord for a long time, but it's a broken walk, and you've been afraid that we would reject you, you've been afraid that He would reject you, know that we are people of the Christ, and we will not because He will not. Amen. He will not. He welcomes you today. And if this day you're subject to the invitation of God, why don't you come right now while we stand and sing? Come.